This is the story of the one island that could decide the next global war, and the machine inside it, too small to see, but powerful enough to break the world economy.
Somewhere in Taiwan, in a factory the size of a small city, a machine costs more than most companies will ever be worth. It's built by one company in one country, and if it stops running, so does almost everything else. Your phone, your car, the missile defense system protecting your country, the chip inside the AI model answering your questions right now. Trace any of it back far enough, and it runs through the same 13,000 square mile island sitting 100 miles off the coast of a country that says it belongs to them. Here's the part almost nobody talks about. This isn't a future crisis. It's already happening, right now, in the air above the Taiwan Strait, in trade restrictions signed in Washington, in factories being built in secret in China. And the world has quietly organized itself around a single point of failure it can't afford to lose.
Militaries plan around it. Central banks model around it. Entire national economies, Japan's, South Korea's, increasingly America's own, are built on the assumption that this one supply chain keeps working without interruption forever.
So, how did one island end up holding the entire global economy hostage? And what happens the day someone decides to pull the trigger? Start with what you probably already know. Taiwan makes chips. A lot of them. But a lot doesn't really capture it. We're talking about a company, TSMC, that manufactures somewhere north of 90% of the world's most advanced semiconductors. Not just a slice of the market. Practically the whole thing at the very top of the technology ladder.
For decades, that felt like a business story, a success story even. A small island with almost no natural resources built the most important manufacturing capability on the planet, one clean room at a time. Nobody was scared of it. They were impressed by it.
Then the world woke up. Because somewhere between 2020 and now, impressive quietly became terrifying. The same concentration that made Taiwan an economic miracle also made it the single most dangerous choke point in the global economy, and China's military knows it.
Here's the part that gets buried under all the headlines about tariffs and export bans. This choke point didn't happen by accident. It happened because everyone else decided, one budget cycle at a time, that it was cheaper to depend on Taiwan than to build the capability themselves. The United States, Japan, South Korea, even China for a while, they all leaned on the same island because TSMC got so good, so far ahead, that competing with them stopped making financial sense.
Morris Chang, the man who built TSMC, made a bet in 1987 that nobody else wanted to make. A company that didn't design its own chips, just manufactured everyone else's, better than anyone thought possible. That bet compounded for almost 40 years. Now it can't be undone in 5.
Apple designs its chips in California. NVIDIA designs the processors training the world's AI models in the same state. Neither one owns a single factory capable of building them. They send the blueprints to Taiwan, and Taiwan sends back the future.
And there's a second choke point hiding inside the first one. TSMC can't make its most advanced chips with one specific machine, an EUV lithography system, and there is exactly one company on Earth that builds it, ASML, in the Netherlands.
One island holds the chips. One company in one European country holds the machine that makes the chips possible. 2 single points of failure, stacked on top of each other, and the entire digital world balanced on top.
So what does everyone do with that knowledge? They start protecting it or attacking it, depending on which side of the map you're standing on. The US has restricted the sale of advanced chip-making equipment to China, trying to slow down Beijing's ability to build its own version of what Taiwan has.
China, in turn, has poured enormous state investment into its own semiconductor industry, trying to buy its way out of dependence, years, maybe a decade faster than it would happen naturally. And in the meantime, China keeps flying. Fighter jets crossing into Taiwan's air defense zone, Navy ships circling the outer islands. Not quite an invasion, Not quite peace either. A slow, deliberate pressure campaign, testing how much the world will tolerate before it looks away.
Now think about that for a second. Every one of those flights, every naval exercise, isn't just about Taiwan's sovereignty. It's a rehearsal. And everyone downstream, Tokyo, Seoul, Washington, Amsterdam, is watching the rehearsal because they know exactly what's at stake if it ever becomes the real thing.
This is where the story stops being about geopolitics and starts being about you. Because if that choke point ever actually breaks, if a blockade or worse cuts Taiwan off from the world, it doesn't stay a regional problem.
Car production stops within weeks. Phone manufacturing stalls. Data centers can't get replacement parts. The AI systems, the missile guidance systems, the pacemakers, the traffic lights, all of it runs on ships that, for now, only exist because one island keeps building them.
Economists have modeled it. The estimates run into the trillions, a bigger single-year hit than the 2008 financial crisis, bigger than the pandemic's worst quarter. Not because of the war itself, but because of everything the war would take offline on its way to happening.
We like to imagine the next global conflict as something loud. Missiles, headlines, a moment you'd remember exactly where you were. But this one is already unfolding quietly, in the space between a factory floor in Hsinchu and a shipping lane 100 miles wide.
It's happening in export control filings, in quarterly earnings calls, in the space between one fighter jet crossing a line on a map and the next one. The most dangerous place on Earth right now doesn't look dangerous at all. It looks like a factory, humming, spotless, and utterly indispensable.
No sirens, no headlines yet. Just clean rooms, silicon wafers, and a handful of engineers who understand a process almost nobody else on the planet can replicate. And that might be exactly why nobody's ready for what happens if it stops.